bottle with just a regular plastic bottle lid. Got an air compressor here. It's just a little one. You could use here. And then, of course, we have the attachment that goes to it. This one's got a little bit more pressure than last time I tried showing this, so I'm not going to unscrew this. I got to let some of the air out of here. But it's a pretty cool implement. One thing that you can use this for is for fire suppression. You put your fire retardant materials in here. Put it upside down with some, well, you don't want compressed air in there, do you? Anyway, this can be used for a lot of different goods. You can use both liquid and powdered goods. If you have it upside down, or if you have a straw going through there, down to the bottom here. Sorry, my vehicle is a shit pit. It's my living area. Now it's able to apparently hold up to 200 psi. It's also plastic. I wouldn't trust it in a fire situation. But that's not what I have it for. Now, for self-defense, you can use something like this in conjunction with, well, jalapeno juice, which I do have some of. And just attach it to the top. Make sure that the hose piece that you put over, you poke a hole in it so that you can put a toggle piece in so that you can depress that. And you can have the hose go whichever direction you want. Now, the important thing to note is that if you choose to fill it with something that's liquid, then you're going to possibly have the ability for it to seal up better and you might get more than one puff out of it. But you also, kind of like the bear mace that I have, it says it's got up to 5 seconds, 35 feet. This right here, if it's in a liquid form, it's going to go further, and it's going to disperse more, or it's going to disperse less, sorry. It'll also stick in clumps. If you put a powdered substance in there, such as powdered jalapenos or cayenne pepper or something of that nature, then it's got a lot of little solid debris that is going to get stuck in there. And the more coarse it is, the more it's going to leak. So black pepper is probably out of the question. But the thing about using a tiny bit of a decaking agent so that it doesn't stick together and using fine grit is that it has a very wide dispersal area that's tough to get away from. It's not like a spray. If you get hit with something that's got actual pepper in it, red peppers preferably, well, it's not fun. It is going to get all over your entire body. It'll get all over your clothes. Anything that you touch, you will contaminate with cayenne pepper. Anybody that you interact with is going to be interacting with cayenne pepper or whatever pepper you happen to use. And having a hose at the other end allows you to basically point it whichever direction you want. Now, we've all seen stuff similar to this on YouTube. They show you how to make them. This right here is obviously the valve off of a tire. But also, if it's, let's say you put a powder in here, as it is now, you put a powder in here and it all settles, most of it settles to the bottom. When you press the top here, it's going to push out mostly just compressed air. I mean, yeah, you'll get quite a bit of the powder that'll still come out with it, but it won't be the same effect as if you've got a gravity feed and you've got all that powder and you've got the compression behind the powder. It'll want to push the powder through that a whole bunch all at once. If if you put a straw in it, it'll work the opposite way. There's stuff that's similar to this with ball valve, where the ball valve, once it's open, will allow BBs to go through, and they just fill the thing with BBs, and they have a little tube that goes into it. You have the back end so that it rests at an angle like this instead of being straight and level, and that way all of the BBs that are in it settle down into the bottom here. And then you have the tube that's coming in here. It goes straight out of here, but when it comes in here, it goes down at an angle into the lowest point. And what that allows it to do is, unlike these ones that they're coming out with now where it is a straight tank, those BBs are, you've seen the airsoft stuff. The way that they're all put together, the way that it's assembled, you get probably 30 to 50% of your BBs that never leave it, because as soon as it's uncovered, as soon as the port that all of the gases are wanting to exit through is uncovered, it's not pushing any more BBs in there, it's just letting the air out. So by putting it at an angle like this, and by taking just the back end of that tube and bending it slightly into here, you can be a lot more effective with it. Also, when they do it that way, they tend to take these things right here, and instead of putting it in the cap like this, they put it in the rear end. And then they use the cap for where it attaches to whatever apparatus you happen to be using. Now, these are really popular with airsoft peoples. They're also real popular as airsoft grenades. Now, this is not going to hurt anybody unless, of course, it gets held right up to their fucking eyeball or right up to their nose. And in that case, it's just going to be painful. It's not going to kill them by any means, and it won't be fun for them. This is what the tire valve things look like. We'll unscrew it and look at it up close. You press this thing down. Of course, many of y'all have actually seen tires, but I actually know a lot of people who have never checked a tire valve and don't know how it works. You'd be surprised. There's people in the United States who have driver's licenses that don't know how to change a tire. That's a little scary to me. Oh shit, I lost the tip to this. Okay, so one of the things you might notice, it's pretty stiff. I'm squeezing it pretty hard right. Well, I can't squeeze very hard on it. Have some issues with that, but it's hard enough that it should squish, and I'll show you why. We're gonna depress the tip here, that little thing right there. We're gonna let some of the air out. I never go above about 10 pounds of pressure, maybe 15 at most, because I ain't got the hand strength. But look at this. See how easily it squeezes now? That's because the air pressure's been let out. All I had to do here, well, not all of it actually, there might be a little bit left. Just take one of those, here it is, one of these right here, and cut a hole through the lid. Let me see if I can pop this back out. Cut a hole through the lid, and then pop this in there. I've seen people put a little bit of lithium grease or some oil on it. Oh God, I forgot I am a weenie. Everybody, YouTube viewers, please remind me from time to time that I am a weenie. Sometimes I forget that I'm not 20 anymore. Oh God, now I'm quoting Rexa. If I can get it to twist, it'll go in easier. But I can also put this on it, and even though it's not good on the air pump, I can screw it in, and then I can pop it up into place by pumping it up a little bit. Now this can be used and filled with all sorts of stuff. And as long as it's not in a flame area, you won't have to worry about the pressure behind it pushing the wrong stuff out. Another thing you can do is you can compress it with inert gas. An inert gas is a gas like a noble gas, for example. It's not necessarily inert, but let's take a look at helium, non-flammable. Let's take a look at hydrogen, flammable. Because hydrogen is flammable, it is not a noble gas. Alright, now that this is in place, I can twist it a little bit. Make sure that it seats just above the ring, and then when we start to pump it, it'll start to push it into place where we want it. Now you notice I'm using a really tiny pump. This allows me to control how much is going in, how much is coming out, and there it goes. It also makes it so that I don't accidentally overpump, getting overzealous with a pump that has a large volume area and end up popping the bottle and making my life unpleasant. Right now it's pretty easy to pump. Alright, but my hands are getting tired. There we go. Now it's seated. Now it doesn't have much in the way of pressure in it yet. We'll have to pump it up again. But it's not going to give it much. I mean, it doesn't make it invulnerable. I wouldn't trust it to 200 psi, but I've seen a few of the videos with King of Random and some of the other places that do, well, some of those really important or really cool looking jobs, I should say. They get to make stuff out of trash like I do, but they have a shop to do it in. They have editing equipment, a place to edit. They got lots and lots and lots of stuff that they can do. They can smoke cigarettes off camera and not live in their filth, which is pretty cool. Anyway, it doesn't have a whole lot of pressure behind it. And of course I do lose a lot having to unscrew it like this, so I need a better pump. But, you know, just like before, it makes it pretty solid. And of course we got the lid here that'll keep it safe from accidental discharge. And of course, it's just air. If you put cayenne pepper in there, I do highly recommend putting some sort of decaking agent. It doesn't take much. The reason for that is because any sort of moisture that's left in the bottle, since polyethylene terephthalate does collect a very tiny percent of the moisture, that's what helps to seal it up. It is important before you melt it down and recycle it that you basically try to dry out all of the moisture that's in it. And you do that by putting it in an oven. And that also helps to prevent you from getting really nasty, like white foamy looking areas where steam has produced bubbles. And it helps you to prevent browning where there's an area that's getting a nice even coat, but there's also another area that has a pressure front, which separates the plastics from the surface of the mold. Stuff like this is pressure molded. It goes into a mold and then they pump air into a little bulb and it expands into the shape of the mold, and that's how you end up with this. I prefer the rotomolding system because you don't end up with an unsightly seam like this one. I'm not sure if it'll show the details on this seam here, but you can feel it all the way up the bottle. Let's see if this gentleman's gotten back a hold of me. He asked me WID. I think that's what are you doing? Or what you doing? What you doing? Talking shit, cleaning out my car. Anyway, with 5 or 6 of those, it cost me $1.29 for the brisk tea that came in, or that came in it, and the bottle was free. These right here, I went down to my local tire shop. Them folks are good to me. They gave me 6 of them. And I'd like to actually start buying their used ones, just because you can make a lot of really cool stuff with this. You can actually power things off bottles just like this. There's what do you call that? It's a weight, a counterweight, but it's a on-off valve based on the angle of your vehicle. It's a mechanical on-off valve, and when you're going downhill, you have momentum in your vehicle. It allows you to pressurize canisters. Because you're going downhill, you've got that momentum plus weight of your vehicle that helps to really, really create a I've been trying not to cough for like minutes. Just making sure that it's coffee and not piss. Nope, that's piss. Just kidding. Now, obviously, compressed air. Probably don't want to light a cigarette around it. I've seen some pretty cool rockets made with those. There are special clip valves that can go on those that'll basically just open it up immediately on contact and keep it locked open. And some of those rockets go 200-300 foot up in the air easy. As far as the PSI on this right now, it's probably, I don't know, it's probably 2 atmospheres. I mean, it's got some give to it, and for somebody with weak hands like me, being able to move it at all is, well, it's a good show of force, but it also shows that it's less than 35 pounds of pressure, because I couldn't squeeze it at all if it was 35 pounds. No, I wouldn't trust it at 200 psi. I do know that it would seal itself up better if it was 200 psi. But I left that overnight charged up to see how well it would work out in the morning. Worked out quite well. I know a lot of people have had the idea of using lithium grease on here, just right at the nipple. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Fuck it. What's done was done. Where the fuck is my toilet paper? Well, anyway, some of these right here, I've got a life vest idea. Recyclable materials and all that. And it's also similar to one of my flotation ideas. I've got a bunch of trash bags that I've got a little bit of hose to. And as long as I put the valve on and then a check valve at the other end so that it only goes one way, something like this can fill up the majority of a garbage bag. And although a garbage bag isn't the best as far as being sealed up, that doesn't matter. The fact that it's holding any air at all is enough to keep it buoyant. Also, because it's within a self-contained, basically a cage, the trash bags aren't going to go anywhere. Something like this would allow it to be filled up rapidly in an emergency, at least enough to keep you buoyant. A lot of the stuff that I've designed, the foldable stuff, doesn't have any buoyancy within it. It doesn't have any buoyant materials. It can be made from buoyant materials. Obviously, I've got one of the mats made out of this kind of foam that I put on my cane. I put this on my cane because I actually use this to get in and out of the boat that I built. Um, even though the boat's kind of out of commission because I've been driving around with it on top of my car for a bit. I do have better plastics that I got on sale. They were originally going to be for a camp because I was looking at the tarps, and the cheapest one in the size that I needed was like 14 bucks. I got this for $2 over at the grocery outlet. I got another one for $3 over at the Goodwill. Bargain shopping. It's good plastic, good thickness. I actually have 3 of them overall. That would also allow me chemical dividers. There's stuff that I work with that obviously you don't want mixing with other stuff that could be potentially hazardous or dangerous. And the sad thing is, all of you do as well, you're just not cautious. That's how accidents happen. I know pilots who go through the entire checklist every time they take their airplane out and every time they move their airplane, even if it's just being taxied from one place to another. That allows them to get into a not bad routine where they are OCD about getting into the air unless they have checked every little thing on the aircraft like you're supposed to. Where you have problems is when you get somebody who's lazy and they go, oh, well, my Cessna has a Lycoming engine, and this Lycoming engine isn't known for this particular problem, so that particular problem I'm just not going to check for. And that's how a little bit of wear and tear, or a little bit of carbonization ends up with a failure of a critical part, something that was easy to maintain and easy to clean, such as contacts on a motor. I do realize on the brushless motors you're not supposed to need to do that. Anyway, this video is getting pretty long. I don't remember what the original context was even supposed to be. I did go off a little bit on one of my inventions, and guess what? It's not my invention. Somebody else come up with it. I came up with that idea a long time ago. On my Facebook, there's actually a design for a sling bow that I made. A sling bow kit for a slingshot. And now people actually sell them for about 10 times what I would have. And although I did it with natural materials, I still did it with materials that were not substandard. I also made sure that when I used the nylon paracord, which is the not natural part of it, that I use the bright orange stuff so that it sticks out like a sore thumb. I'm gonna sneeze again. Maybe not. Boogers are gross, okay? Anyway, there's a lot of different stuff that you can use for a PPD. That's a personal protection device. And I can show you how to make a lot of them. but I can also show you better, more scientific ways of using it. Yes, you can use these with a little bit of, well, I've got some sriracha sauce for one of the littler ones. Some sriracha and some distilled water. Another thing that can be done is putting these out in the sun. Pressurized. Not smart. It'll scare the hell out of grandma, that's for sure. Sometimes it'll expand way too rapidly. Like if I was to throw it on the black top right now, this would probably explode. Matter of fact, because it is the heat of the day and I can feel it heating up already, I'm going to release all of the pressure in it again. And hopefully this will be the start of some more projects. It's just like with everything else, it's a matter of having a place to do it. All right. There we go. Now it won't have the ability to build up that kind of pressure. It could build up enough to bulge just a little bit, only because the plastic gets hot, starts losing some of its tensile strength, and starts activating the elastomers more than the polymers. That's how you end up with a different shape. A lot of times after I've drank all the beverages in a bottle, which is kind of what keeps it from expanding as much, I'll put it out in the sun just so it'll bulge out the bottom. I like to have the round bottoms on a lot of the stuff that I utilize, because if it's got a round bottom on it, then it's got a better shape for what I utilize it for. And it's got a better aero or hydrodynamic profile, which is also important when you cut one of those in half and you want to use it to make a little boat and put it in the water. It's actually shaped like a boat instead of having a weird, I don't want to say bubble butt because that'll have the wrong connotation to it. Also, steel wool, super good stuff. I'll show you in just a little bit why it's super good stuff. I'll show you a little trick that it's already all over the internet. It's not like it's something that's some big secret that needs hidden, or something that's against the rules or anything like that. I got the ultra fine stuff because it's the most reactive, and also because it turns into rust the easiest. Now, when you start learning about rust, you start learning about a lot of safety precautions and a lot of protocols. The reason for that is because rust has bonded oxygen molecules. What that means is that rust itself is fuel for any combustible. So it's important that anything that you have that's combustible, that has rust on it, especially rust powder, that you wash that shit off. Also, one of the issues that I've seen with stuff that's oiled and gets hot is that oil can turn into its own combustible under pressure. So something like that bottle there, if I was to put lithium grease on it, it might not be as combustible as if I was to put on, well, hopefully nobody's dumb enough to use diesel to try that. But diesel, you still need the impact. I mean, it's got to be a pretty high amount of pressure in order to self-ignite, and it's got to happen quickly and rapidly, otherwise the heat disperses. But on a hot day, especially when you got something that's highly reflective and you got a little tiny bit of oil vapors within the vessel that it's contained in, and it's doing the reflective thing like you creepy bastards that burn ants with a magnifying glass. When you've got a bottle and it's concave on the inside and convex on the outside, what you end up with is somewhere in the center of the bottle is where that stream of light is converging on itself and creating a hot spot. So basically, you're just creating a big mess waiting to happen. Now, you can try to change the outcome of that by one of two different methods that I'm aware of that are real easy. One of them is to paint it, and the other is to cover it with paper. Just make sure you pay attention to what color you're painting it. If you paint it black, then yeah, sure, you're going to prevent the most light from getting in there. But even white paint, even in a very light coat, will prevent it from having that refractory nature. It's called soft light. It amounts to an even dispersal, basically. Like the difference between having a liquid stream coming out of something like that bottle or a powder that's coming out of it. One of them's going to have longer distance and stick together better, be a lot more accurate. The other one is an AOE, area of effect. I do need to find some proper wires, because if I don't get proper wires, I'm not going to feel safe with a couple of the projects that I'm working on. It is currently wet enough out for me to show some of my ideas. Well, not my ideas, but little components of other people's ideas that have been passed down through the centuries that I plan on showing you all how to put them together into some really cool stuff. Now, I'll explain to you the defensive ways that it can be used, but what I'm going to be using it for is entirely different. There's a lot of stuff that I designed that I think is going to work well for saving lives, including an aerial ambulance that's not very large. It doesn't take much power to run. Now, of course, they're pipe dreams. They're just ideas until it's been built. But when you build something, you got to build a model before you try to invest in a full-size anything. You want to test it before you invest in something big, because you can make some big mistakes. It's better to make a big mistake little and go, all right, well, I'm not out much, and here's how we correct it, than it is to build something huge, invest your entire life into it, and then have it bottom up. Be safe, folks.